And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, that podcast where we kind of just shrug and go, well, we can't do anything because this week we watched The Square Triangle.
Written by Alan Patillo.
Directed by David Lane.
And aired on December 9th, 1970.
Speaking of the air date, we completely neglected to mention, I guess because no actual source makes mention of this, the only reason you would even notice that this was a thing was if you were looking at all the air dates in order, but it seems like UFO just took 3 weeks off because Subsmash was aired on the 11th of November and then Destruction wasn't aired till the 2nd of December, whereas all the previous episodes were aired in a 1-week cadence. So, that's weird.
Something else that's weird that I found out while looking up the show notes for last week is that, so we were wondering, what were we wondering? We were talking about, how they decided what order to air them in is what we were wondering. Yeah, and I couldn't find any information about that, but one weird anecdote I did find, well, not anecdote, but just trivia thing, is that because of the decentralized nature of how UFO was originally aired, there were instances where two different episodes were premiering at the same time. So it's if you were a diehard UFO fan, you basically had to have, and remember this is 1970, so you basically had to have two TVs set up and watch both of them, one with each eye or something like that. And actually, there was one instance where three different episodes were premiering at the same time on 3 different channels. Same exact time slot, apparently.
Well, that's annoying.
Yeah.
Pop on your tape recorder, not your VHS, your audio tape recorder, and just record the audio, and then later on you can just listen to the episodes you missed. And just imagine the visuals in your mind.
I know, that's all you really could have done back then. And, I've listened to other podcasts. I don't remember which ones, Doctor Who podcasts, and I think a couple Blake 7 ones as well, where it's people who were watching these live, back in the 70s and stuff were I had to record these with my audio tape recorder. And I was man, what a different world. Whereas now, literally everything is a few clicks away, if you know where to look.
If you know where to look. Very ominous. Speaking of everything being just a couple clicks away, Legend of the Sea Devils airs 2 weeks from today, and there's a trailer for it now, a trailer which I haven't watched, so lol, guess I'm going in blind. But yeah, just a reminder that when that airs, Inevitable is going to take a little couple week hiatus while we do some Doctor Who over on Trust Your Doctor.
Yes,
2 weeks from today that we're recording this, I suppose I should mention, because it's April 3rd today, but not 2 weeks from when this episode airs. Although we will be... Okay. Legend of the Sea Devils airs 2 weeks from today when we're recording this, April 3rd. 2 weeks from today when this airs, we're going to take a break, so we're still going to have 2 more episodes after this before the hiatus. There we go.
Yes. So starting April 20th, we will be on hiatus for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Not sure how many yet, but if you're listening to this months or years in the future, you won't even notice. So
all those Decadent Vegetable archaeologists digging up old episodes of Decadent Vegetable, I'm imagining people digging up rare recordings, like people do with the Beatles, rare bootleg.
Right,
digging up rare Decorative Vegetable recordings, like that time we were on the Blue Box podcast.
Right, well, that's really our only thing out there in the wild that's not under our umbrella. So
I know, I bet I just sent a whole bunch of Decorative Vegetable fans scrambling to find out what
to
you listen to that recording. Yeah.
It was basically us talking about Canine and Company for Blue Box podcasts. What was it, their 5th anniversary?
Didn't we talk about Canine and Company for that?
Oh, no, it wasn't. It was, what was it? What was it?
Was it Doctor in the TARDIS?
I can't remember, to be perfectly honest. It wasn't Canine Company. I don't know why I said that. We did that by itself.
Wow. This is such a deep cut that not even we remember. Somebody go find out for us and tell us.
Anyway, it's pretty clear that we don't want to talk about this episode because this episode sucked.
Was really boring.
It was. This was probably the worst one yet. This was really seriously the definition of, like, I know we've joked about this before, but we had no idea what was about to hit us in the face. Like, this was the definition of 10 minutes of story stretched out to 50 minutes.
The worst part about that, to me, is that the beginning of the episode sets up a really interesting moral quandary that gets discarded in 5 seconds, and the end of the episode sets up a really interesting moral quandary that gets dismissed in 5 seconds. And the middle 40 minutes between the first 5 minutes and the final 5 minutes are just like... I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like it's Shadow f***ing around for like 40 minutes.
Yeah, Shadow messing around is really the backdrop, honestly. The forefront of this episode is marital meandering. Almost as bad as political meandering.
Yeah, that would be the title of this episode. Sorry, Steven, doing your job for you already. Marital meandering would have been the title of this episode.
You called this soap opera-ish before we started recording, and it is. I was honestly, I was kind of invested in this sort of, love triangle thing that the episode had going on.
What?
But it just, it was interesting enough, but, like, it didn't go anywhere. Or barely went anywhere, rather. Now, we talk about the ending of this episode, and we'll get there, but I just have to preempt this, since you mentioned it, of, like, the end of this episode was almost euphoric, in my opinion. Both because the episode was ending, and, it was finally over, but also just the content of what happens in the final, 3 minutes of this episode was like a fever dream or something, and in a way that you might not expect, but we'll get there. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, it was genuinely hilarious in my opinion.
It was actually really funny. On multiple levels. But we need to get there.
Yeah, because the episode opens, as most episodes do, with UFOs attacking Earth.
Yeah. And as most episodes of UFO have shown so far, that just kind of falls into the background.
So Moonbase is like, we need to go to yellow alert. And then Sid is like, no, we need to go to red alert. And then Straker's like, no, we need to go to no alert. Let that UFO through. So Straker is actually, you see him kind of like pull out a chart, and he's, and he pulls out a compass, and he's doing something with the chart. And eventually, wow, why am I not remembering his name?
What? Freeman? Foster?
Freeman. Thank you, Freeman. Freeman comes in and he's like, Straker, so why are you letting a UFO through again? And Straker's like, well, it's going to land like basically right here in England. It's the perfect opportunity to try capture one of these things intact. And so this sets up, like I said, a really interesting moral quandary right off the bat that I thought was actually quite interesting, because Freeman's like, that could lead to a lot of death, right? And Straker's like, well, it's a pretty low population density area. I think we're going to be okay. So basically setting up this catch-22 almost right off the bat of like, well, we want to be able to capture the UFO or the aliens inside so that we can learn more about how to, protect humanity against them. But at the same time, the risk in doing that is that we might kill a bunch of people now.
Yeah, well, hope you had fun with that thought for the 2 seconds that the episode entertains it.
I had fun with it for the 10 seconds the episode entertains it, actually.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah. How do you like them apples?
Yeah, I was 8 seconds off.
8 seconds is like 8 weeks.
I know, it really is. My favorite part of this beginning sequence was like that one operator guy who's in like every episode. Don't know his name, but shout out to him. Is like, the UFO is closing in on Western Europe. Oh God, it's about to hit England. And like, yeah, of course, every UFO comes to England. What does Shadow do with the UFOs? Like, are there UFOs landing like in Zimbabwe or like, you know, Mongolia or something? Like, what do they do in that case?
Well, I assume they pretty much shoot down most UFOs before they even get to Earth, you know, thanks to Moonbase. So, I mean, I assume they get shot down most of the time before they even land.
Yeah, well, all the ones that don't are landing in England, so...
Incredibly convenient for Shadow. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
This episode also, I might forget to mention this later, so I'm going to mention it now, is like the first indication we've had that people, like regular people, just recognize who Straker is as a film executive.
I know, that's one thing I was going to bring up at the end, but since you mentioned it now, might as well just talk about it now. I was like, if the rest of the episode was putting me to sleep, and it wasn't, but if it was, them going like, I think the guy who took us in is Straker, that film executive. Like, that would have snapped me right awake. They're like, Straker of Harlington Straker Studios? What does he want with us? Just the thought that these people have the thought running through their minds that they have been kidnapped by famous film producer Straker.
I know, can you imagine just
getting kidnapped by like Avi Arad?
Even better, can you imagine like you accidentally kill an intruder in your house and then you get kidnapped and taken to like Avi Arad or Amy Pascal, and you're like, what am I doing here? Yeah. I just killed someone.
Yeah. You wake up gagged and tied to a chair in Kathleen Kennedy's basement.
And then not only that, then, you know, Kathleen explains to you how she's the head of a global alien defense organization.
I know this, honestly, Shadow did not even need to drug them. They could have just let them go, and like 5 days later, they would have been like, that was a dream, right? Yeah, that was a dream.
Oh God, the absurdity of the situation.
We have to get there. So, as the UFO is attacking, a woman is driving. She's driving a foreign car, interestingly enough. The steering wheel is on the left there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost done in like a... like, it wasn't a jump scare because it was slow, but like it has almost the same effect where like the guy is sitting in the back seat and you just see his hand like kind of creepily poke out of the shadows.
Haha, out of the shadows.
Oh God, yeah.
You're welcome.
So she's driving this.
We find it.
Go ahead, yeah.
Go ahead. I was just say we find out pretty quickly that this guy is not her husband.
Yeah, well, so this was interesting because towards the beginning of the episode, I feel like I might have just misheard this, honestly, but like, didn't some guy say, it might have been Freeman even, I can't remember, talk about like some like murderers or like homicidal maniacs hiding out in the woods or something. And I figured like once they said that line, I was like, okay, so the two people in the car are the murderers.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't seem to be the case for the rest of the episode. Unless
I don't remember the line you're talking about, but it sounds like something Freeman would say. So
if I am correct, I guess I can just try and pull up a script if I can find one. If I am correct,
good luck with that
episode, or if I am correct, that line seems to have no bearing on the rest of the episode.
I mean, if Freeman said it, like I suspect Freeman probably did say it, he was probably just saying it for the comedic effect of Straker being like, well, no one lives in the forest, and Freeman like, actually though, murderers and rapists of women live in the forest.
Alien 3. Oh god, okay. Well, I found the script and Control F murder. Controlled F murder. Didn't find anything. So, let me just... Homicide? I don't know.
Homicide.
Manslaughter? Okay.
Okay. Getting into some more, lower level crimes. Not by much, but a little bit.
Yeah, manslaughter is what, like second degree? No, third degree.
Can you imagine if Freeman had just said there are manslaughterers living in the forest?
Yeah, manslaughterers and rapists of women. Well, that must be an American term, right? I don't think they have... That's like a legal, definition, right, of unintentional killing. Like if you run over someone in a car or something like that. Accidentally, yeah. I mean, you can run over someone in a car on purpose.
Then it just becomes murder.
Yeah. Anyway, they wind up at a little cottage. The guy has a sort of very nice John Lennon look going on.
And then he man, I don't know if it was just me who got this impression or if this was the impression they were going for, but it's almost like he kind of forces himself on her. She's seems really uncomfortable with kissing him. I don't know if that's how you interpreted this scene. She looks very uncomfortable with this whole thing. Which I guess when you find out what they're going to do, makes sense why she feels so uncomfortable with everything.
And now we get into the point of the episode where things slow down to a crawl.
Well, so a game warden finds the UFO. A game warden with his dog finds the UFO. And the dog spooks the alien, and the alien falls over and cracks his visor. So
This is Anthony Chin returning, not reprising his role from Sub Smash, because his role in Sub Smash bit the dust in Sub Smash.
Was to die.
But as we discussed in that episode, he plays an alien in another episode, that episode being this episode, Square Triangle.
Yeah.
So this is him.
Yes. It was a really roundabout way of saying all of that, but you got there in the end.
Kind of like the episode itself.
For my own entertainment value, while trying to keep myself invested in the episode, I kind of imagined we've already learned that the aliens use human body parts, use entire human bodies. So I liked to imagine, to keep myself entertained in this episode, that this alien wasn't just another alien played by Anthony Chin, but was actually the aliens retrieving Lieutenant Tony Chin's corpse and using it for nefarious purposes. That's more than likely, in fact, 99.9% not true. But, it was keeping me invested in the episodes, so...
Yeah, that could be, if the episodes of UFO weren't so, compartmentalized, basically, that could be an interesting thing to do. But, most of the episodes have no direct relation to one another, to the point where you can watch them in multiple different orders and the show works out fine.
Sub Smash, ironically, being one of the few that actually references other episodes. Right. So anyway, this alien then kills the game warden with a machine gun and self-destructs his UFO.
Meanwhile, the couple in the house are talking about murder. You piece together what they're going to do through the dialogue, and I guess that was, to me at least, one of the more interesting things from the episode is kind of, because they never come right out and say it until close to when they attempt to commit the murder. But they're kind of speaking, in a way where both of them know what they're about to do, and you kind of are just trying to put things together. It's not a hard situation to put together, but it's, yeah. The house that they walk into is yet another set house, right? UFO has done this before, where a character will walk into a room or a house And I know we're just railing into this at this point, but I have to mention it. And it looks very much like a set. It's just a very open plan, no real distinction between the rooms. And you can just tell instantly that it's a TV set.
They're doing their best with the budget they have, Keon.
Yeah, they are. It doesn't look bad. It has that element to it where it's like, this is an old-timey cottage, and you're telling me it's an open-plan house inside? I don't think so.
Look, maybe... What was his name? God. Maybe Mr. Fowler just performed hundreds of thousands of dollars in renovations on this house.
Yeah, maybe. That is actually one of the more interesting things about the UK, speaking as someone who's visited the UK multiple times, is like, you'll walk into a building that like looks like it was built in like the 1500s and probably was, and you'll walk in and the inside is completely modern. There's nothing like that here. And
the closest you could probably get is like some old buildings in New York.
Yeah.
Because New York is like insistent on, New York City specifically, is insistent on cramming apartments into every available square foot of every building.
Yeah. And that's something that like you get on the east coast of the US, you get this in the UK and, you know, a lot of European countries, and really probably most places in the world, is like cities were not developed for cars. Like most cities in the world, most big ones, you know, we, without going into too much detail over where we exactly are, although it's very easy to figure out and find out if you really wanted to, we live in a place that, like, the infrastructure of where we live was made for cars because it's fairly new. Most places are not like that. Right. That's why you go to New York City and you're like, what the hell is this? Like, what? How did this like miniature hellscape come to be? And you realize that it's like, all right, cars were not, you know, it wasn't made for cars. The place we live is a macro hellscape, by the way, and just to kind of even out my insulting here. It's no miniature hellscape, it's just a large sprawling hellscape.
Everybody's favorite kind of hellscape.
We live in a massive valley too, so that's why smog settles in.
Yeah, just adding to the fact that doing this podcast is going to kill us one day.
Yeah, because we recorded in a room full of sawdust for years.
Gotta love the potential for lung cancer, you know? It's just one of those things you gotta deal with.
Sooner or later, baby. Oh, that's what it was. Here, let me Control F the script again. Yes, Freeman has it was a killer. Okay, so Freeman. Meanwhile, there's a potential killer or killers at large.
When did he say that? What was the preceding line? Give me some context.
This is after Straker. It's towards the beginning of the episode. This is when Straker is trying to convince him of his insane plan to let the UFO through. So Straker goes, "We're fighting a series of losing battles. Why? Because we don't really know who or what we're fighting. I've waited months for a chance like this. A UFO right on our doorstep, etc., etc., etc." And Freeman goes, "Meanwhile, there's a potential killer or killers at large."
I think he's referring to the alien. Remembering the scene now that you've said that, I think he's referring to the alien being a potential killer at large if he lets the UFO land.
Yeah, you're right about that. I thought he was referring to... Because we don't... At that point in the episode, we don't really know who the couple is. And so I thought he was referring to them being like... I don't know, they killed some people in the area or something. Because not right after that, but a little bit after that, we see that they have a gun. Which is a more alarming thing, probably... to have, I guess, for them than you would, you know, I guess it's different than like an American set show, like pulling out a gun where it's like, okay, this is sort of a, well, actually, I don't know. This is America. I don't know when like strict gun enforcement was put into place in the UK. We've looked this up specifically for the show, but I can't remember. But whatever, it doesn't matter.
You'll remember when you put it in the show notes.
This is actually before the alien kills the guy and the dog and all this.
Yeah. But anyway, the alien kills the guy and all this, and then Shadow shows up. Shadow mobilizes the mobiles, and Straker puts Paul Foster in the mobiles. Once again, Paul Foster, the everyman. He can do every job. And they, like... Freeman, apparently they... This, I thought, was really funny, because all of this is clearly happening, like, over the course of one night, you know? And we know this because it's implied as such from the scenes between Mrs. Newton and Mr. Fowler, that this is all one night. So I thought it was really funny when Freeman comes in and he's like, we've had reports of a missing game warden. And then I'm like, how? Who noticed the game warden was missing? It's been like an hour.
Yeah, guy's got some good friends or good family who's like, haven't seen him in an hour. Could he perhaps have gone missing or potentially be dead?
Yeah, either good friends and family or overbearing friends and family. They find his dog. The dog survives, in case anybody was worried about the dog dying.
Oh, does
in
it?
this episode. The dog survives. There is some justice in the world. Because that's actually how they find the alien. They use the dog to find the alien, and that's how they find the alien after it gets killed by Mrs. Newton, although we're getting a little bit
so you're saying they triangulate his location?
I mean, Straker triangulates where the UFO is going to land. Man, it's triangles all the way down.
Yeah, and squares.
Squares, great. So Mrs. Fowler gets a call from her husband. At this point, Mr. Newton has a... Sorry, I have that backwards. Mrs. Newton gets a call from her husband, and Mr. Fowler has taken a shower and... He just has taken a shower, and they kind of elaborate the plan once again. They're like, look, he'll come in the door and you'll shoot him. You know, and the police will you'll just be like, well, I shot someone who I thought was an intruder. It's a
very elaborate plan. They're really covering their bases. The way this is done is that, what's her face? I can't seem to remember their names either. Mrs. Fowler. What's her first name? Mrs. Newton.
No, Mrs. Newton.
Was Liz Newton, yeah. So she is she's very shaken up about what she's about to do. Obviously, if it wasn't abundantly obvious already, she's going to kill her husband. And she's not having trouble remembering the plan, but there's like a million steps to this plan where even if you were about to just, I don't know, go buy some eggs or something, like you wouldn't remember the steps anyway because there's too many of them. It could have been anything at the end of the road here. Like it could have just been like, I don't know, cook breakfast at the end of the plan, at the end of all these steps, and you wouldn't remember it because there's too many steps. I was going to say triangulate. They've narrowed it down to the minute where it's like, all right, you're gonna go to your bed for 5 minutes and you're gonna read for 3, and then you're gonna turn out the light, but after a minute you're gonna turn it back on because you realized you actually weren't tired, and they just go on and on and on. Not that that's a bad thing, you're going to commit murder, cover your bases. I don't necessarily know why they need to have such a fine-tuned plan when they're out in the middle of nowhere, but hey, who's going to notice this, right? Like why do they have to have such a plan like this? Who's really going to notice?
Especially since they... Man, this is... can't believe I'm picking apart a fictional murder plan, but anyway. They come up with this whole plan, it seems like so that Mrs. Newton can have a sort of alibi, Oh, I shot him because I thought he was an intruder. But then when the husband calls, he's like, oh, your plan worked. Like, nobody's going to know where I am for the next 3 days. So it's like, they could just kill him and then, like, bury the body and no one would ever know. Because no one knows where he's going to be, so they don't need to come up with this elaborate plan where it was like he was an intruder. In fact, the only reason story-wise this plan even exists is so that Foster can figure it out later and go, wow, we're in a real moral bind here.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
But anyway, the husband calls, and like I said, he tells her that no one's going to know where he is for the next 3 days or whatever because of some plan she came up with to tell the people he works with some nonsense, not real statement. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Anyway, he's just like, I'll be there in an hour.
Well, that's the important takeaway from the scene. Because he got like it's something stupid. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he got like a gift for Liz or something. And, you go like, oh, wow, that's so sweet. And he's going to his death. Except not really, because the characters are so paper thin that you don't care.
Well, throughout all of this, you kind of get the vibe that Mr. Fowler has been like manipulating Mrs. Newton. Why do I feel like I'm playing a game of Clue? Mr. Fowler has been manipulating Mrs. Newton like the whole time, just like, especially so at the end, he's like, I can't be here, like with the dead body, I gotta go. And she's like, no, you gotta stay, like you gotta help me. And he's like, no, I gotta leave. Like you get this vibe that he's been manipulating her to do this all along. And that like maybe, because then as soon as she gets off the phone with her husband, she's like, I don't know if I can go through with this. Like, he got me a gift. Like, I think he's a nice guy. And then Mr. Fowler's like, no, I've seen how he treats you, how he minimizes you, how he patronizes you. And she's like, yeah, all right, I guess you're right. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, well,
just really want to commit murder, to be honest. Don't really care who I kill.
I was thinking this too, actually. I didn't really dwell on it too much, because... Yeah, the episode doesn't really do anything to invest you in this, but like, what motivation could Cass have had for doing this? I was thinking maybe it was like, all right, he wants to marry, because it seems to be, I'm not entirely sure, but he seems to be a fair bit younger than Liz and Jack. So I was like, all right, is he trying to marry her for money? Like, what is his game, Maybe it just is that he, like, he's in love with her type thing and wants the husband out of the picture.
Yeah, I don't know. If you were in love with someone, would your first thought really be, I'm going to manipulate her into murdering her husband? She could potentially go to jail, but... Yeah, that's maybe, fine, I guess.
Well, so Jack Newton is clearly like some sort of businessman. Maybe the episode gives you no reason to believe what I'm about to say, but whatever. Maybe Cass was like, I don't know. He was part of like a hostile takeover or something, and he wants revenge. I don't know. I'm part of, like, a victim of, you know what I mean? I don't really even know what a hostile takeover is in the business world, but hey.
So you're telling me you're not a filthy corpo?
No, I still am.
Oh, okay. A hostile takeover occurs when an acquiring company attempts to take over a target company against the wishes of the target company's management.
Oh, nice. Thanks for just saying that. I know and not reading it off of any sort of webpage.
Yeah, I know. I really nailed that delivery, didn't I?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you a... Oh, God. Don't even mention the stupid Oscars. Just put a bullet in my brain before you mention the Oscars.
Well, you feeling a little slap happy there, Keon?
Wow, am I...
Are you saying I should keep the Oscars name out of my mouth?
Wow, am I really being that bald and transparent about it? God damn it. If there's one consolation prize to all of this, it's that modern memes are forgotten within 5 days, so within a couple, probably hours of me speaking this, we won't have to deal with stupid Will Smith versus Chris Rock memes anymore. But anyway, UFO. Jack shows up a little early. Liz is not prepared to pull the trigger. He walks in the door and the curtains are drawn, so he's kind of fumbling around in the dark behind the curtains. Cass says something incredibly stupid, right? Which is that, I mean, this whole plan is kind of incredibly stupid, but he's like, now. He directs Liz basically to shoot when she doesn't have a clear target, and they end up killing who else but the alien.
It's telegraphed from 6 zillion miles away that she's going to shoot the alien. There's no shock to anyone except to Mr. Fowler and Mrs. Newton here.
Yeah, as it is kind of funny in hindsight that they're putting into place, or they're ideating these like minute steps down to the minute of what the plan is going to be. And like as soon as things go off the rails, Cass is just like, all right, you got a perfect shot. Line that baby up and take that sucker. And it's like, no, you don't have the target in sight. He's behind the curtains. Don't do it. And they go through with it, and of course things go horribly wrong. This is when Cass storms off, as we mentioned before, and Liz is very shaken up, even though her husband has been spared, luckily enough.
Well, Mr. Fowler's immediate reaction is to run. He's like, I gotta go. And Newton's like, what? And he's like, yeah, just call the police in 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he runs away, only for Paul Foster to kick down the door and walk in and be like, what's going on here?
I know, like
he runs over and kicks down a chair.
Blake 7, shout out to Zenith, the Blake 7 podcast. Shout out to Dana and Justin, another very awkward and weird romance, just like in this episode. It wasn't actually really a romance, but yeah. The more I think about that, and I have been thinking about it because apparently that's like the one of 3 things we remember from Blake 7, is like, I feel like whoever wrote that episode wasn't intending there to be like pedophilic undertones, but no, I'm serious. Like, I think whoever wrote that episode probably just forgot that Dana was like supposed to be in her late teens or early 20s. So like when they wrote Justin to where he had like feelings for her 10 or 15 years ago, it wasn't going through their mind that like, okay, she was, like 5. Right? That's kind of what I want to... Yeah.
Yeah. They probably just forgot to do the math.
On Blake 7. This is neither here nor there. Actually, it's there. It's as far away from here as you can possibly get. But, let's just look this up. I'm curious. Was it Veer Lorimer? It couldn't have been Veer Lorimer. It was Alan Pryor.
Oh no.
He wrote other episodes of the show, I believe, but I don't remember which. Oh, he wrote Volcano, another piss poor episode. Not really. It was good. He wrote The Keeper, that was a good one. He wrote Hostage. It was, okay, yeah.
Well,
We're
anyway,
at the end here almost.
Anyway. Foster's like, I need you to come with me, Mrs. Fowler, Mrs. Newton, jeez. And she goes outside and sees that Mr. Fowler has also been captured.
So much for running away.
And they take them to Harlington Straker Studios. This is where we get the funny
scene where it's like, I think we've been kidnapped by Ed Straker, the famous film producer. Straker walks in. He's like, you guys have had a pretty traumatic experience, haven't you? And they're like, yeah, what the hell was that? And he's like, aliens.
Yeah, he goes, it's alien. He's so menacing in this scene. He goes, it's aliens. Aliens are real. And we actually don't see any of that. We do. Shit, UFO has done this before, but we cut to after Straker has done it. And Mrs. Newton just goes, so you're saying you're part of an alien defense organization that protects us from UFOs who come down to destroy us? And Straker goes,
word
yep,
for word,
that's exactly
verbatim,
what
actually.
I said. And then he says, oh yeah, we also developed a mind-erasing drug. And they go, oh, neat. And he goes, it's tasteless. Would you like some more coffee?
I honestly
and they
love
both
that.
look at their coffee.
That was like probably my favorite thing from the episode. That's like such a good line. It's so good. There sounds like I'm hearing like a ticking time bomb sound like in the background. Anyway, yeah, they get amnesia. The episode ends with Straker and Freeman and Foster all in a room, and for some reason, I forget how, but they deduce that like they were going to kill the husband.
Well, so Foster is, I don't know, investigating the house.
Right.
And that the husband arrives, and he goes, what's going on here? And Foster's like, oh, you need to go back to London. And then Foster's like, wait, was your wife expecting you? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, So then he goes to Freeman, who then takes them to Straker. And Freeman's like, so Foster has an interesting theory here. And Straker is like, well, what do you mean? And Foster explains that Foster basically explains that he had this theory that Mrs. Newton was going to kill Mr. Newton, and that she didn't shoot the alien because he was an intruder. She shot the alien because she thought it was her husband. And Straker's like, nice theory, I guess. But like, what are we going to do? Do you think we're going to go to the district attorney, Do you think they can really like prosecute on this? What are we going to do? Tell them that aliens are real, produce the body? Nothing we can do. And Foster's like, are you sure? He's like, if we don't do something, she's just going to try kill him again. And then Straker has this hilarious explanation for why they're not going to do anything. He's just like, well, before Shadow became involved, it was a triangle. And then Shadow got involved and it became a square. All we're doing is erasing the last 12 hours and making it a triangle again. And then just Foster and Freeman kind of just pensively nod and
all
go.
Right.
They just pensively nod in agreement. Now, the final shot of the episode, I don't know if you interpreted it this way, but I interpreted it to be she actually succeeded in killing her husband later on, because it's just a shot of her at a gravestone,
yes, and then she walks
play the
away
credits
with,
over that. Like, that's how the episode ends.
It is because it's shot from afar, right? It's sort of a very far shot, but it looks very much like Cass. And so the implication here is that they, even though they were drugged and they forgot about their attempted murder, they had that seed in their mind already and ended up committing it again and succeeding this time.
Yeah.
So yeah, after that drawn out, stretched thin, like this is, you're trying to share some bubble gum with someone but it's already in your mouth, it's already chewed, so you stretch it out long and thin and pop half of that sucker into their mouths. Don't do that. But after that, after that stretched thin story, this 10-minute story that they told over the course of 50, we just get, well, nothing we can do about it. And then they just go home.
Yeah.
They just go home and they just let it happen. And that's it. Pretty avant-garde in a way. And pretty dark, actually. Pretty dark.
It is really dark, but I don't think Strake is going to lose any sleep at night.
No, something tells me you're right about that. Foster might, honestly.
Maybe. Foster doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to lose sleep over it either.
Really, he kind of does to me, honestly. But,
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I have nothing else to say about this episode.
Yeah, neither do I. It was... Yeah, I want to say this is the worst one yet. I was just... So little of this episode contained anything that I was invested in, unfortunately enough. It was just... I don't know. I don't even know what to say, and I don't want to keep going on about it. But it was just boring from the get-go.
I feel like it would have been more interesting if the alien had been killed in the first 5 minutes and the rest of the episode was them, like... trying to find a way to convince, like, basically Shadow trying to... God. Shadow... I can't believe I'm about to say this. Shadow gaslighting Mrs. Newton and Mr. Fowler into not realizing they killed an alien to try and attempt to dissuade them from attempting to actually kill Mr. Newton. Just hijinks ensue for 40 minutes of Shadow trying to, like... They keep trying to convince these people that they killed, like... That maybe they didn't kill him, or they killed some other random guy that wasn't Mr. Newton, and they're like trying to save Mr. Newton's life the whole episode. But they didn't do that. That was the final 10 seconds of the episode, and Straker just goes, eh. Well, anyway, talking about convincing people that they're seeing something they're not, there are some actors in this episode. So Patrick Mower played Mr. Fowler. He's still acting, actually. He actually currently has a role on Emmerdale Farm.
Dang.
Or at least he did in 2021. Maybe he stopped in 2021. Anyway, The Asylum, CI5, The New Professionals, The Dark Side of the Sun, the Marco Polo TV miniseries from '83, Strangers, Bergerac, haven't seen that one for a while. State of Emergency, King Lear, 1974, Callan, UFO, obviously, Department S, ITV Playhouse, Z-Cars, The Avengers. That's pretty much everything notable that I recognize here.
Mm-hmm. So playing counter to him, we had Adrienne Corey as Liz Newton. She has an incredibly extensive career, over 100 credits. Started acting in the 40s in roles or in shows/movies such as The River, The Web, The Three Musketeers, Opportunity Murder, Call It a Day, The Surgeon's Knife, Dial 999, Sword of Freedom. I'm just reading everything that seems like a prominent role for her here. 01, Paris 1900. She was in Secret Agent. We'll see if she was in The Prisoner in a bit. She's in Doctors Zhivago, however you pronounce that. Yeah.
Zhivago.
Mm-hmm. The Idiot, Armchair Theater. Was she in The Prisoner? Doesn't look like it. Prisoner was 67, right? So it doesn't look like it. And 68, I think. Yeah, obviously in UFO. You're Only Young Twice, Eyeless in Gaza, A Family at War. What else here? Oh, she's in Doctor Who. She played Mina in The Leisure Hive. And her final... So she was in... her second to last role was in Lovejoy in 1992, and then she has a role here in 2018. Oh, it's a riff tracks thing, so okay. Yeah, it seems like her final proper role was in 1992.
Interesting.
Died 5 years ago, or 6 years ago.
Oh, it's pretty recent, actually.
Yeah.
Well, I also looked up Alan Cuthbertson, who played Mr. Newton. Mr. Newton. Let's see. The Guns of Navarone. It's a good movie. I've seen that movie, actually. Didn't realize that was him, but okay.
Now you know. Knowing is half the battle.
Now I know, yeah, I guess. He has a lot of acting credits here, but nothing that I really recognize. 167 acting credits. He died in 1988. Let's see. The Dick Emery Show, Murder, he was in an episode of Fawlty Towers, The Magical World of Disney.
Hey, that means he worked with Patrick McGoohan, though. I don't know.
Nice.
Patrick McGoohan was involved with that to some extent. I don't remember how great of an extent.
I guess we'll put it in the show notes. Journey to the Unknown, The Avengers, The Gamblers, The Saint, Game for Three Losers. Oh, okay. ITV Play of the Week. Benny Hill.
They just call that podcasting now. Sorry, I had to say
it. Armchair Theatre. ITV Television Playhouse. The Man Who Was Two. The Count of Monte Cristo TV series from 1956. Yeah, it's most of the big stuff.
Mm-hmm. I didn't have any other actors, but I did look up Alan Patillo, or Patillo, however you pronounce his last name, just to see what else he graced us with over the course of his career. It looks like he's worked on other Jerry Anderson things, such as Thunderbirds. Apparently, according to Wikipedia, he, quote, won an Emmy in 1979 alongside Bill Blunden for his film editing on All Quiet on the Western Front, end quote. He worked on a bunch of other things too, including the Avengers.
Lots of people in this episode who worked on the Avengers. The Avengers.
Yeah, I'm surprised they made it to 2012. I'm just kidding. Not that Avengers.
Well, we have an email from Steven, UFO, the Square Triangle. This was episode 11 in the order that I watched. As a dog person, I really liked the dog. The red spacesuit, while not so elaborate, still felt very alien. The murder subplot was somehow stranger, though, but it leads to an interesting question of whether or not Shadow should reveal it, risking their secrecy. It's very eerie that during the end credits, rather than the zoom out from Earth, we see Liz looking at Jack's grave. In some ways, this is an even more haunting ending than other episodes. Speaking of Shadow, have you noticed how the word shadow has been prominent in some of the things you've covered, like Shadow from Blake 7 and I Worship His Shadow from Lex? Feels very bad wolf. Possible custom titles I thought of for your Destruct episode include UFOs May or May Not Exist IRL, If Only That Storming of Area 51 Succeeded, When the World Needed Him Most, Naruto Running Guy Vanished, Just Eat All the Bananas, Sent from Yahoo Mail for Refrigerator. On a Zenith episode, Keon said people can die more, saying double die or overkill. As a response, here's a clip from Seinfeld on the matter, asserting that one can't overdie. Also, here's the trailer that just came out for Minions: The Rise of Gru, in case you haven't seen it yet. https / www. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Cheers, Steven. Sent from AIM for Fax Machine.
Wow, AIM, that brings me back.
I thought you were going to say, wow, Fax Machine, that brings me back.
That too, I guess.
I was about to, like, when I ran for office, because, yeah, I ran for office, but, like, I had to submit a form, and my options for submitting the form were to, the only options, by the way, were to mail it or fax it. That was it. I couldn't just like email it to them. I couldn't just like, you know, they didn't have an online portal to do it. I had to either fax it or like send it via snail mail.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. A lot of government processes and institutions are stuck in the past, sometimes for good reason. Just because it's incredibly difficult to update some of that infrastructure. Especially like the Army. The reason the U.S. Army is still on like Windows XP is that like if they turn off their computers to update, like missiles will just launch and like cause nuclear Armageddon. Not really. No, I'm exaggerating, but there are like valid reasons of why they can't turn off their computers. So like they literally just use like a special version of Windows XP.
Man, the uptime on those machines.
Yeah, it's like literal decades.
Imagine if some guy just comes in and goes, I should really reboot these, just reboots it and just crashes the entire infrastructure, the entire U.S. military infrastructure.
Imagine if some guy's kicking his legs underneath the table and accidentally unplugs one of the computers. Like that episode of South Park where like the internet goes down worldwide. It's because someone unplugged the internet, which is just this giant box in like the Midwest.
Great.
Well, thanks for the email, Stephen.
Yep, thanks for the always. Email.
We didn't get any social media comments as usual.
Dang.
I may hate social media, but I do like getting comments on there, so leave those comments.
So leave some comments for Keon. They really brighten his day for him to log into Twitter and see that little notification number next to that bell. Help a brother
let's go
out.
With that.
Help a brother out. Leave some comments for Keon on the Twit space.
And Facebook.
Yeah, so if you'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadavegetable.com. Questions, comments, concern, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on the love triangle. You can find us on YouTube at Decadent Vegetable. You can find us anywhere else. You find the podcast at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast. And follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be watching Close Up. Shadow obtains what may be the first photos of the alien homeworld. Finally, we're finally getting more of the UFOs after the aliens and the UFOs themselves have been relegated to the background for quite a while. But until then, the end.